I know that I'm not alone when I say that I love it when video games have great music. It makes great games even better and makes bad games bearable. I'm no expert in music that knows the ins and outs of what makes a good song. I just go off of a feeling. You know in cartoons when characters smell a pie and they float towards it? That's me whenever I hear a great soundtrack. And that's why I want to talk about great video game music. But to list my favorites is a bit too tall of an order for me right now. There are way too many great soundtracks out there for me to only put 10 on the list. Plus, there's already enough videos about great video game music already. So what about the soundtracks that no one really ever talks about? Those are the ones I want to focus on in this video. Are these the best soundtracks in the industry?
No.
But if I was to go up to you and tell you that these 5 games actually had really good soundtracks, you'd probably think,
Okay.
these are 5 game soundtracks that I think deserve a little more attention and appreciation. The criteria I made for this video, which all these games fall into at least one of these points, is that it is an obscure game with a great soundtrack, or a generally well-known game where the fans never seem to mention how great the music in it is. This video is in no particular order and doesn't contain every single underrated soundtrack out there. If there's a video game I didn't mention in this video, put it down in the comments and I'll check it out for a potential second video like this if I ever get around to it. Also, no JRPGs or rhythm games, as those games always have great music. I just want to bring a little more attention to those soundtracks that I never really hear anyone ever talk about.
You're great! You're so talented!
When you think of content for babies or toddlers on YouTube, you probably think of the lowest quality content, those that are easy to produce, much of the time low effort, and brings in boatloads of views that makes the content creators tons of cash.
Fatherfinger, where are you?
Much of it isn't very good, so you'd probably think that the same garbage would be produced for video games made for toddlers, like Rescue Heroes, Billy Blazes for the GBA, but no, that isn't the case. The game itself is a short, serviceable game, especially considering its demographic, but the soundtrack goes f***ing hard. It isn't the best soundtrack in the world. It isn't one you'd want to hear in a game like Final Fantasy. But it's a great one that gets you into playing a game intended for toddlers. And there was no reason for the soundtrack to be this good. Even if the soundtrack was the most generic, copyright-free sound and music in the world, this game would have sold the same amount of copies, but they still put effort into it anyways. The only downside is that there isn't that many songs in this game, because the whole thing can be beaten in under an hour, but that doesn't deter from the music that is here. The game itself is okay if you ever want to try it out. You could beat the whole thing in an afternoon. One thing to note that isn't related to the game or its music, but Rescue Heroes itself, is that the intro for the 1999 show sounds a lot like the music that makes you go poo.
Let's move. Rescue heroes. Rescue heroes.
I might be alone on this one, but my favorite generation for licensed games has to be the 6th generation. Most of the licensed games that came out around this time were either okay, or actually really good. Robots is in that realm of nothing special, but good enough to where you want to play the whole thing through. Like many other licensed games of its time, it's a 3D platformer that takes every inspiration from other 3D platformers, Robots being inspired by Ratchet & Clank. As a stupid little kid, I used to play this game all the time, and the one thing that has stuck with me was the music, which is much better than what you'd expect from a quick cash grab of a game. It strikes a good balance where it has those more common songs for when you have to explore and find the blueprints, but it also has those more bombastic songs for the racing and combat sections of the game, all of which is memorable and sticks with you long after you're done playing it. My personal favorite is the racing song. Stephen Duckworth, the composer of this game, really went all out when he didn't need to. Again, just like Rescue Heroes, this game would have sold the same amount of copies regardless if it had good music or not, but yet they still put effort into the soundtrack. Again, to talk about something that has nothing to do with the music, but the Rodney in this game is a borderline psychopath. He just wanders into the city and begins blasting all the robots there, And yes, it's true that you can claim that he does do it in self-defense since the robots do attack him on sight, but his one-liners make him sound sick in the head.
Game over for you. Cleaning up the city. Here, can you fix that? If not, hey, I've got some scraps for the dog.
Jeez, not only does he kill these robots and uses their scraps as ammunition, but he feeds their scraps to the dogs? What a freak.
Well done. You can use the scrap launcher against any bad robots.
Oh, that's how it works. If you classify the other robots as bad robots, then it's okay to kill them all with no remorse. I'll make sure to use that same defense in real life. Your Honor, those were just bad people. This is not the same Rodney as the one from the movie. Now on to the next game. Originally, I was going to put one of the Ultimate Ninja Storm games in this spot, likely Ultimate Ninja Storm 2, then I realized that those games are pretty popular and most of the fans recognize how great the music for those games actually is. So then I decided to put the other Naruto fighting game franchise in the spot. Not just one game, but the entire series since I couldn't really pick a favorite. And you might be saying to yourself that, that's not one game, that's like 7. You're cheating. And yeah, you're right. But it's my list, so I can't say whether or not I like the soundtrack for the Clash of Ninja series more than the Ultimate Ninja Storm games, but I can safely say that these games still have a phenomenal soundtrack. Most of the stages have an energetic song going on, and rarely do any two songs in these games sound the same, and most of them rock. Yet, despite all that you're trying to focus on when you're playing this game, you still can't help but jam out to the songs going on in the back. There are plenty of great songs from these games, but I'd say that my favorite would be Tenzaku Castle. When I first heard it, I was surprised that it wasn't a song from the show, but the video game itself. It's a shame they haven't ever brought back this series, either with the new game or a port of the originals. It's been over 15 years since we've had a new game in America, and I think it's about time for a new one. I can't go as far as to say that they are better than the Ultimate Ninja Storm games, but I personally prefer the combat system in these games slightly more, but that could just be because I grew up on them. Clash of Ninja will always have a special place in my heart, except for the final fight of Revolution 3. That fight. So this game was a genuine surprise when I first played it. I only got it because the 3DS store was shutting down, and it was on sale for only like $3, so I decided just to pick it up. Even when it's not on sale though, the game is only $10 and definitely worth the price. It's a weird little action RPG that definitely has its issues, but it overall is a great time and worth the cheap price of admission. The game also has a quirky cast of characters that includes this guy. His gimmick is that he constantly asks out the main character, Perrin, on dates. Yeah, it's real funny.
'Cause I like high school girls, that's why!
Despite that though, Guruman is a fun game that comes with an amazing soundtrack. Unlike the other games, which still have good soundtracks but aren't one of my favorites, Guruman and the next game in this video would be somewhere in my top 25 if I were to ever make that video. Every single song in this game is instantly catchy, even the most insignificant of cutscenes or locations, like the store, have a memorable song attached to them. And on top of that, there's just way too many great songs in this game for me to mention in this video alone. There's also a little mechanic in this game where if you time your attacks to the beat of the song, then you get critical damage on the enemies. This isn't too hard to do because of how catchy the music in this game is. The number of great tracks here is too many to list in this video, but that final boss theme is among one of my favorites in any video game. Guruman is one of those games where the soundtrack turns a good game into a great one and has me coming back to play the game over and over again. If you're ever interested in trying out this game, then it's available on Steam for cheap. But if you don't want to play the game, then lucky for you, the soundtrack is available on Spotify for anyone who might want to add the song to their workout playlist. Trust me, it's that good. In my humble opinion, my favorite type of music in games are the songs from water levels. I'm not sure what it is about the music from these levels, but they usually end up being my favorite in most games. So what if the entire game is a water level, like the Endless Ocean games? Then the entire soundtrack is gonna be amazing. Endless Ocean definitely has one of the oddest choices for music, as many of its vocal tracks from Hayley Westenra and the Celtic Woman Ensemble sound like something out of an opera. But it works. For those few Endless Ocean fans out there, I know I'm not the only one who gets this scared out of me whenever that one part of Benedictus plays while you're in the abyss. You know the part. The person who decided to put songs like Benedictus or River of Dreams into this game is sort of like the first guy to milk a cow.
Go on.
No.
Even if the best tracks of this game are the vocal ones, I wouldn't have put these games in this video for those songs alone since they weren't made for the game. However, the original soundtrack for both of the games are great as well. It's calm, relaxing, and something you can listen to for hours and never get sick of while you explore the ocean trying to find each and every fish. The hours I spent in the aquarium alone as a kid has left that song stuck in my head to this day. Just for the music alone, I would recommend both the older Endless Ocean games. If you're on the fence about trying out the series, both games can be bought online for under $10. There's also other ways you can experience the game in case you don't have a Wii or don't want to spend the money on it. The Endless Ocean games show that taking a risk with a seemingly odd choice can pay off in the end and create one of the most memorable soundtracks from the Wii. So those are 5 games that I think have an underrated soundtrack, but there are far more than just 5 games with an underrated soundtrack, which is why I would be up to doing more videos of this kind in the future. Like I said before, if there's any other game soundtrack you feel doesn't get enough attention and I didn't mention it in this video, feel free to put it down in the comments, and I'll check it out for a potential future video. But for now, that's it. That's the end of the video.